how important is your DS-160 when you go to your visa interview? I'm a former visa officer. The answer is that it is very, very important, but it's not the most important. Let's talk about why it's very important. And then I'm going to tell you what's actually more important than the DS-160. Why is the DS-160 very important during your visa interview? It's because you know with 100% certainty that the visa officer is going to look at your DS-160. They are going to look at it. All the documents that you bring in your packet with you, all the deeds and the financial records and the transcripts and the invitation letters, the visa officer is most likely not going to look at any of that. They're not going to look at any of that, but they will, because it's mandatory, they will look at your DS-160. They might not review every piece of information in there in detail, but they will open it up. They will look at it. They will look for key pieces of information in there. And it's one of the very first things that's going to give them an impression of your credentials for getting your visa. What precedes the DS-160? One, well, they look at you. They look at you when you walk up to the window. And just like in any interaction, the subtle subconscious cues that you give them are going to make them think something about you, right? How you're dressed, how confident you look, your posture, your confidence. These are going to affect how they think about you. The second thing that they're going to see is your passport. Well, that's going to give them more information. They're going to see your nationality from your passport. When they open it up, they're going to see, is it brand new or has it been used? Have you traveled outside of your country to other countries, right? Are you an international traveler? Then when they scan your passport, they will know some of your visa history, right? But none of that is going to affect their thinking as much as looking at the DS-160. So they look at the DS-160 and they're going to see your employment, they're going to see your education, they're going to see your prior travel history, right? They're going to see your family members in the US. All these questions that you've answered when you fill out your DS-160, that's information that the visa officer is going to see when they review it. You have the opportunity to shape their thinking with how you fill out that DS-160. You need to make sure that you fill it out, or at least someone that you trust fills it out, and then you review it before it is submitted. There's actually a spot on the form when you fill it out that where you check that yes, you have filled it out, and you verify that everything that is included in there is true. Now, if you have an agent that does that for you, many visa applicants run into this problem. An agent has filled out their DS-160 based on just some questions that they've asked, but this is just someone working for the agent who's just filling in the information. It's not that important to them. Maybe they've made a mistake, maybe they don't care, maybe they just don't even know any better, and so they fill out the information wrong. Then you go into the interview and they say, okay, well, it says here in your application this, why are you telling me something different? And you say, oh, well, I don't know, I didn't fill out the application. That's not an excuse. It's derogatory, and it's not going to help you get your visa issued. So this is just like anything. It's like a job application. You wouldn't have someone else fill out your job application and then walk into an interview. No, you would fill it out yourself. In the same way, you're going to do that with the DS-160. You want to make sure that you know that the facts in your DS-160 are accurate, and you want to know what those are. Let me give you another tip about the DS-160, and that is that it's not a job resume. You're not only putting the relevant details, the things that are most impressive in your educational history and in your work history. No, that's not what it is. It is more like a CV where you will put everything. You need to put every educational experience in reverse chronological order, and filling in as many as you can get before you run out of space on the form. It only lets you put in a certain number of these. For your work as well, the same thing. Why? Because if you leave a gap, you've left a question. If you say, yeah, from 2016 to 2019, I worked here, and then from 2021 to 2023, I worked here. Well, what happened in those years where there's no employer? Well, maybe it's because you went back to school, or maybe it's because you did an internship that wasn't paid. Whatever it was, you still need to include it, because then you've answered the question and you've not given the visa officer a reason to think, oh wait, what's going on here? Don't leave them with questions. Always leave them thinking, oh, I already have all the answers. All right. Now, what's more important than the DS-160? What's more important than the DS-160 is how you speak to the visa officer. The information that you give the visa officer verbally during your interview is even more important than what's in the DS-160. The DS-160 is first. It makes a strong impression, so don't ignore this. Also, the DS-160 is usually in English. Sometimes you'll be able to write in the local language. Even if it's in the local language or English, the visa officers are not always great speakers of the language where you are. Sometimes they're great speakers, sometimes they're even native speakers. Other times they're middling, and sometimes they're even poor speakers. Even a poor speaker, though, will read better than they can listen, right? So you can put information there in the DS-160 that you know will be accurately understood by the visa officer, right? Because you don't know if you're going to speak to someone who's a second-generation American who speaks their mother tongue fluently, speaks Spanish fluently, or Portuguese or Chinese, or if there's someone that's just been taught 6 months of that language and is just dropped in the country and has no context and very poor linguistic skills. So in your DS-160, it's very important to get that information across to the visa officer. However, the most important part starts when the visa officer asks you that first question. And that first question starts the interview, and then you're able to give them that information verbally. There's a lot of other videos that we have on here. I'm talking about this first question a lot and how to prepare for it. It's in general terms because everyone's situation is different. There's not one thing that everyone should do when they're asked that first question. But my colleagues and I at Argo Visa know when we talk to you, when we have a consultation, when we figure out what's actually going on, what are your highlights, what are your hurdles, we know what it is that you need to be talking about first. What's that information that will make a light go off in the visa officer's head that says, yes, I'm going to give this person a visa. So that's when it really gets important. So DS-160, the second most important thing that you can prepare for your interview. Don't ignore it. Make sure that you're the person who is in charge of putting that information in there and confirming it before it's submitted. That's going to help you get your visa issued.